question that I often get is how do I handle when I have uh, a multi-pick lookup, when I want to create a report where I'm using a multi-pick lookup as one of my categories, especially if I want to use that category as being something that I want to show groupings of records. Well, it turns out it's not really that straightforward, but there are several different ways that you can represent that, and that's what this technique in this video is going to be about. It's 5 different methods for doing this that I'm going to show you, but they're all very quick. Um, but they're not necessarily intuitive, and some I really question the value of doing it this way even. But let's say I've got my auctions that I had before, but this time, instead of having the auction item type being a single pick, I'm going to let it be a multiple pick. In other words, auctions could have multiple different types, let's say. So in this case, I have a relationship like this, where before it was against just single pick, it would have gone to this foreign key field, lawn auction star item types dash record identifier. Now I'm going to make it a multi-value pick. So if I look at the data sheet for auctions, you'll see that on that item types here, it comes out as looking like a list, but we know it really isn't. It's in the background. It's really a soft many to many, but it's represented as a one to many here. So yeah, relationship in the diagram. But you can see we got the multiple pick here, and we could add again. We could add or rename whatever, or take out whatever we want to, and it would update it automatically. Now I didn't do this on a lot of these. I just went in on a couple of them and put multiple categories on them just to demonstrate what we're about to do. So the one we want to remember in particular is this first one, this baseball players in World War II. That's book, history, sports, and war. It comes in 4 categories. So we want to actually, uh, if when I do groupings on categories, I want to actually have that show up in each one of those categories. That's an interesting thing. But anyway, let's go out here and look how I did this. And I've got two methods. There's 2 different queries here, but 5 different reports that will derive from those queries. So the first 2 reports will be on the first query, and the second 2 report, the other 3 reports will be on the second query. On that first query, it's pretty straightforward. Just go into design view, and you'll see that I got the auction table in here, and I just put in that multi-value field in here. Now that's interesting. When I look at that, when I run that now, what you'll see on that multi-value field is the same thing that we saw in the data sheet. We see it as a list, and that's great. It's no problem. Maybe that's the way I actually want to show it in the report. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to attach it to this one that I call the multi-type list box. What I'm doing here, if I open up in design view, you see that it's going to be placed here under a column called category. But if I look at these other ones here, and I look at the type of control it is, if I go to the property sheet, you'll see they're text boxes. But when I click on the category one, you'll see it's a list box. Even though it looks like a text box, it's really a list box. And that came in by default. When I dropped in the field from the existing fields, it came in as a list box, which is nice. Now you might notice here, I made it really tall. The reason for that is it's not going to be shown as a list going across like it did in the data sheet. It'll be shown as if it's a checklist going down. So let's go and look at it now, and you'll see. Look at how it looks. Isn't that neat? I like that. Now you can't really check these or anything. It's just the report. Remember, you don't have any interaction with the report. It's rendered once and it's done. So you can't do anything on this, but it does come up and it looks rather neat. I like that. But keep in mind, I've got a lot of these in here, and I'm going to repeat that over and over. That's going to become pretty big. If somebody wanted to print that out, they're probably talking about a lot of paper to do it. And even just to scroll through it, it's quite a thing, because that takes up so much real estate. And we have a limited number of categories. What if I had tons of categories in here? That could get really crazy. But it is nice if you do have a limited number of records and limited number of category values. That might be a way you want to show it. The alternate would be to use a combo box instead of a list box here. I'm going to open up in design view. And now what I did here is I went up to the design bar and picked the combo box control, dropped it in here, and then I bound it. I went into the control itself and I used as its control source that record, the foreign key field. And now when you run that one, you'll see it comes up like it looked in the data sheet, and I don't need as much room for them. In fact, I probably could collapse this down quite a bit if I wanted to. It's not taking up that much room. I could have gone like this, and collapsed them all down. By the way, you probably have figured this out, that you could pick them all that way, and I could collapse it down a bit. And that's goodness then. Get a lot more on a page that way if they do want to print it out. Anyway, I'm not going to save that. All right. So that's great. But as you might have noticed, they are just coming up in an order. It isn't necessarily any kind of grouping of the categories. What if I want to actually group on the categories? Well, now things get a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to use this other query here. And I open that one up, and you'll see I actually had to use a join, a left outer join, in order to do this, because I don't want to use this now. I want to use the category here. So I'm going to drop in the category here instead of the foreign key field, and the join will obviously bring it all together. I run that one, you'll see what that looks like. And what it does is it actually goes in and reconciles every combination, every possible combination then from that join. Now I know because of the sort, you're not seeing it very well here, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to reorder the items in ascending order, and you'll see here's that first one I had, players in baseball World War II, and you see it in here 4 times because it was assigned to 4 different categories. And then see the next one was the Beatles trading cards, and that's in there twice because it had 2 categories. So in other words, it's going to repeat this information for each category that it was assigned to, and then we could group them together and get logical groupings of things together so that we know what each of the categories actually had. So this is what I call multitype in records, and I'm going to go to design view, and you can see that, and it's just got that information I had in here now, but there is no category here. Okay, there's a category value, but I'm not grouping on the category here. I'm just going sort on the eBay number and then on the category type. Okay, so it's basically going to give me what I just got, a similar view to what I just had in the query itself that it's attached to. So let's go out and view that. And you'll see it looks just like that pretty much. I've got all these ones, baseball player in World War II, and then each of the categories in there, they come up in alphabetical order. So these are alphabetized, and then within those, this is alphabetized. And that's why it came up looking exactly like the query, because that's how I sorted it in this QRY auction --3_4_5. All right, now I actually want to group on the categories though. So now I want to do multi-type in record groups by the item type. Now, if I go in here and look at this, you'll see I've got the item type that I'm going to use as my category. I'm sorry, that as my grouping. Okay, that is the category, the item type. I'm going to group on those category values, and what you'll see is the records will repeat if they're assigned to more than one of these. All right, and you'll see down here I actually have the grouping. I sorted on display order, I group on the category, and then I sort again in ascending order on the eBay number, so I got them in order. All right, so let's see what that looks like. And you see I got sports cards came up first because in my display order I gave that a 1. I wanted those to come up first. I come down past the sports cards though. That's where we could see the merits of what we just did. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of sports cards in here, so you have to go down quite a way. I should just drag this down, but here we go. So you can see here I've got sports, baseball players in World War II, and its information, the number, and all that. And if I come down a little bit more, you'll see history, baseball players in World War II, repeating it, and then war, baseball players in World War II, and then books. Okay, it was assigned to those four categories, so that record is showing up in each one of those groupings. Now, this looks like a tally report because I showed that there was profit and all that with this. It's not. Okay, notice I don't have any subtotals in the categories, and if you go down to the very bottom, you'll see I don't have a grand total. Why? Because this number is repeated for each of the uh, uses of these records in those groups. You wouldn't want to have 2.3, 2.3, 2.3. It's really not 4 times 2.3. It's just 2.3. Okay. So to get a unique value here, you wouldn't want to do just a running total of this whole thing, because those are going to be counted each time they're shown. Same thing in the subtotal for the category. Yeah, you could say that. My profit on that category was this much, but then you're also double dipping on these that are triple dipping. In this case, quadruple dipping. If you say the profit also came up in books and history and music, so you wouldn't use this as a totals or a tally report. I say tally report, and sometimes they're called totals reports, but I rather call it tally because it could be a sum or an average or anything like that when we do a tally report. But this is not something you want to use a tally report. This is just purely what I would call a look at the groups. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. I don't think I'd ever create a report that had this in it. I don't know what it would serve. Other than maybe if I wanted to filter it later on, and just have those that belong to the Beatles. I could have them come up, and I know that one was in the Beatles, even though it was also in trading cards, something like that. I could do something like that. So I'm going to close that down. This last one, I'm going to do a multi-type in the record group, but it's going to be grouped by the item number instead of the category. All right, and this one I actually do like. Okay, so on this one here, I've got the category actually in the details section, but then I've got the item information in the header of the group, and it's grouped on the auction item itself, the auction item number, rather than the eBay item, I should say, the auction eBay item, and it's eBay item number actually. I'm going to group it on that, and then sort it on the display order of of the I'm sorry, of the categories. So I would see books first or whatever else, whatever. Sports cards would be number one. I actually, as I go down, I think. Anyway, let's run this so you can see what it looks like. Now this one I like. All right, I've got my item. I've got all the information about the item, and then I've got a list of the categories that it belongs to: sports, history. Some people will ask me, can I put this up here somehow? Nah, I don't think you can. I don't think you can close that gap up there. But you can do this at least, okay? And so I've got this one and its ones, and I got this one and its ones, and this one and this one. I should have turned off that every other gray here. I didn't notice that, but because if I'm going to do that, I should have these gray also. I should keep them in the same color scheme, I guess. But I would probably just turn that off and make it all the same color in the background. But anyway, you get the idea. I kind of like this one. Now, what I would probably do is put some space in between these so that they stand out a little bit more, work on the look of it. But I kind of like the structure of it. And again, I would not do any kind of grand total on this. Although, oh, I'm sorry, that's not true. I could do a grand total on this one if I want to. In fact, that probably be a smart thing to do, get a grand total for profit, because they are all just listed in here once. So I can do that here. so I could get an overall profit if I want to. That would have been a good thing to do. I should have done that. Anyway, that's a way to deal with the situation when you have a multi-pick category and you actually want to generate a report based on that category. I showed you 5 different ways that you could do it. 3 that involved grouping, and 2 of them where it was just a flat report, but different ways of representing the multi-pick either as a checkbox or as a comma deleted list of things like we usually see in data sheets. So that's a handy technique for reporting, and I've got some more to show you in other videos.